All right, everybody, welcome to Service Drive Live. And those of you who got up early from NADA, we certainly appreciate you joining the show. We've got a good one today. We have a lot of technicians. We're blessed to have a lot of technicians that come on this show and share what they do, because a lot of times, we don't get the techs aren't heard, right? They don't get their voice, and they aren't taken seriously. Their wants, their needs, their plans are not taken into effect or taken into consideration when we do our yearly planning, when we do this, when we do that, all of those things, because we assume that they're on board, because we think that they think like us,
Yeah.
and they don't. And because they think like technicians, and they think like leaders, and they think in their own way. And one of the keys to that is that getting their input. We need their input more often. And the best part about it is when we get their input on training new technicians. We don't have techs just lined up out the door. But if you're forward thinking and you get the technicians' input on how to train young men and women to be technicians, well, guess what? You're going to have more. And what's even more exciting on that is when you have leaders, technician leaders in the business that step up and actually take these folks under their wings. They mentor them. They develop programs. They know exactly what to do and what not to do with these techs. And then they share that knowledge. And that's who we have helping us out today is Marshall. Marshall, we really, really appreciate you coming on board. He's a field technician, heavy diesel. But one of the things that's always impressed me about Marshall is that he truly gets the business. He looks at objectives. He looks at how to reach those objectives. He does his homework, and he shares that knowledge. He shares it and it instills it in the younger guys. And he's a diesel tech in heavy equipment out in the field. But guess what, man? He's a car guy. I'm sorry, truck guy. So he's part of the business. He's been on this show for a long time. We want to bring his insight here, and that's why I couldn't think of somebody better to help me talk about building technicians than Marshall. Marshall, tell us a little bit about yourself, because there's some folks on here that don't know who you are, and then we can get into the weeds, if you will, about some of the things you do.
Yeah. I have been a diesel mechanic for about 18 years. Um, I think most people know from my profile that I do a lot of training, and Cummins is my specialty. So I do mostly Cummins work. That's my preferred work, but I do what I got to do. Um, I started out in fleets and then worked my way into multiple OEM dealers. I'm a Volvo master and I'm a Cummins master. I'm working towards my Kenworth master right now. I'll be a triple threat hopefully by end of year.
What's that do for you? That triple threat. What does that do for you, job wise?
So it's kind of like you could compare it to like your guys's ASEs, I suppose.
Okay.
We have T series ASEs available to us, and who is that? Can we
I
meet
got it.
them?
Yeah, I'm working on it right now.
So
Go
it's
ahead.
kind of like we have the T series ASEs, but in heavy duty we don't really lean on the ASE so much because our OEM training is so good.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So
So let me ask you this now. So with that triple threat and that OEM training and everything, um, how how much of that training do you use when you're training your people? And do your OEMs offer programs and such like that? Because in the dealer world, OEMs have some of them have very good training, and some of
yeah,
them not so good. So how do your OEMs work with how do you work with your OEMs to train the youth?
Yeah, so we have so basically I have access on my side. I have access to my apprentices training, online training that they do for the OEM, which is a required training anyway. Um, and then they have it broke down into sections based on skill level. So, I have requirements that my apprentices meet 30, 60, 90 days for their training. It's not required from the OEM that way. It's just I try to accelerate it. So I give them as much training time possible that I can, with still them billing hours and stuff like that. And then I make sure I give them enough time to hit the accelerated times that I'm asking them to get to. And so like we have one we call Truck Basics, and it's probably I don't know, 15 hours of online training. Um, so I push them hard to get that done because it gives them kind of the basic ideas of what the components on the trucks are, what they do, um, just the basics. And you'll see like as they do the training and then they're in the field with me working on the trucks, you can see the little light bulbs firing off and they're going, hey, what is, so that's that thing that I learned about in the class. I say, yeah. And then, they, part of that file that I sent you with the skills, in there's portions of it where they have to describe to me how a system works.
Okay.
And so that's a big thing is if they can describe to me how a system works, then they can typically, when it's time to start diagnosing it, they have a leg up on diagnosing because they understand how the system works.
So let's take a step back. And by the way, everybody, how this works is if you want to contribute, and this is a two-way conversation, all of us and Marcel, back and forth, just pop your hand up. We're here to get communication rolling here. Marcel, let's kind of set it back a little bit. How many, or where do you find, let's talk about where you find your young technicians. Where do you typically find them? And then what's that first step? And do you have an established, like a written out program you do or what? So where do you find them first?
Yeah, so I think it's pretty important that if you are interested in mentoring other technicians, you should first couple steps that you should do is get involved in some of the community colleges. So I'm involved with 3 community colleges local to me. That gives me a pipeline, if you will, of students that I build relationships with over time when I'm going to to all of their shindigs and their meetings, and I'm on their advisory boards to help the schools also meet their needs of the dealership so that they're more prepared for me when they get to me.
So you take time out of your day,
Yeah,
your evenings or whatever, to go to these community colleges, and you say, "No, I'm gonna narrow this down." Shindig.
yeah.
What give us an example of one of those?
So sometimes they'll have like high school nights where they have high school kids to the college because they're trying to recruit students also.
Okay.
So I like to go to stuff like that, or they'll have like a little parking cruise, where the kids that are going to the school have little parking crews and they all drive their little cars that they're building or whatever. And they'll have those. Um, like once a quarter, I teach an after treatment class, for the emission systems that are on trucks.
I think some of the
Um,
people at NADA need after treatment classes right now, actually.
yeah, I heard that. Yeah, for sure. Maybe some IV bags, but but yeah, that's something that works out pretty good for me. And sometimes you just need a guy, and you're in between graduations and stuff. And we do an internship where it's like it's part time, so they come in when their schedule allows from school, and we do internships as well. So also on paper I sent you. So there's an internship and apprenticeship checklist in there.
So, and I'll bring that up and get it over to the chat here. So, what's your relationship like with these teachers? And did they initially reach out to you, or did you reach out to them?
So I reached out to them first because I had a really great relationship and when I was in Wyoming. Now I live in Georgia. So like literally the first month I moved here, I that's stuff that I do in my free time and it's stuff that I really enjoy. So the first thing I did was reach out to the closest community college and I wanted to see what their program looked like. And so that's what I did first. If you're just getting into something like this, you may get there and find out that there's already a good old boys club where there's schools that have or there's dealerships that have been going to those schools for a long time and they're getting they're cherry picking the technicians and they already have a relationship with the instructors. They've been donating to the school and it may be a little more difficult for you to break into that school. And I wouldn't let that discourage you because I just keep looking until there's one that really needs my help. And that's the one I focus on.
So now that you've got the relationship with the teachers and you've kind of busted through that old boys club, right?
Right.
And now you're actually dealing with some of the students, right? You've learned to because you've been going to their events and that sort of stuff. How do you approach the students about a career in with you? Because I mean, obviously, these students are interested in the business to begin with because that's what they're studying. But how do you convince them to have a career with you, and not even convince them, but I mean, do you throw out an offer? What do you got?
Yeah. So I just hit them with what I do and the approach that I take. I want the students that want to be killers. So that's how I present it. If you want to be a baller, you want to be the best around, um, and you want to be really successful, you want to push the limits and you want to know the ends of your ability, then you're the guy to come or gal to come work for me. So that's usually kind of how I present it to them. Um, I'm not I'm be 100. I'm not really looking for anybody that's halfway. I want people they're committed, you know.
So I just opened up Marshall's email, and his tagline is Ronald Weasley.
Yeah,
Just sorry. Okay.
yeah.
So you've invited so now you've invited those folks to work with you. What are the first steps once they're do they internship with you for for a few days to kind of get a feel if they like it, if it's going to be a good fit for them, because it's not for everybody, right? Or
Right,
do they jump on and you do that? And what does your company offer these folks to entice them?
right. So like off the rip, we offer I think our I think they get like 40 hours of PTO the first year, like immediately when they start. So that stuff comes off pretty quick. Um, we definitely are our pay scale for apprentices. Our internships is a little bit less, but it's still pretty good. But the money, we are extremely competitive. I don't think there's many dealerships that are paying what we pay apprentices off the rip. So
Okay.
that's one of the biggest things where we come in really strong salary wise. And we recently started a mentorship program that's based similar off of what the way that I do it. Um, we had a bunch of the mentors, technician mentors that are in my company, put a lot of input into it across company. We have like 110 stores. So there was other guys in my company that were doing something similar to what I did. We all came together and our HR team put together a pretty slick little thing. We call it Masters in Training. And it's an accelerated mentorship program that they just started rolling out. And so that is all in writing. That's something that we put right in front of them and say, hey, this is the plan. So they have a very structured now they have a very structured deal that we put them through. So I think that makes a big difference because the competitors that were getting the apprentices out from under us in some places, um, they were losing those apprentices to the structured setups, where they could put something in front of an apprentice to say, this is where you're going to be at in 60 days. This is where you're going to be at in 90 days.
So it's that career path that we so often talk about. Your
Right.
company actually put something together, and then that kind of gives you a guideline as a mentor to these guys when you're in the field. It gives you guideposts along the way of their journey to
Right.
say, okay, they got to meet these requirements, but it's your job to make sure they meet these requirements, or at least give them
Right.
the support and tools that
Right.
they can use.
Yeah, it really helps me. And you know how I am. I'm aggressive, and I want my apprentices to be the best apprentices. So if I'm going to have an apprentice in a program like that in my company, they're going to be the best one there. So I take those guidelines, I push them to the limits. So like my 60-day apprentice, he's at the 7 month mark on his online training, according to our company guidelines.
Okay.
So
7 months. Okay.
he's done up to this where he's supposed to be in 7 months. He's done that in 60 days.
Wow. You really push your boys.
Yeah.
Wow. Good
That,
job. Hey, Daryl and Michael have some questions. Anybody else that wants to jump in, please go ahead. Hey, Daryl, go ahead, man.
Hey, Marshall, I think it's great what you're doing, man, because coming into the industry, having a good mentor and a bad mentor can make the difference. So, just
yeah.
showing the guys the way and inspiring these guys. I got a quick question though. What is the time frame on training these guys before they get out in the field and make their own repairs on vehicles?
Right. So my apprenticeship that I do with my guys, they're with me 100% of the time for 6 to 8 months. So I typically turn like two apprentices a year.
Okay. So 6 to 8 months after training before they get out in the field.
What's the next step after you're done with them? So, I mean, after 6 to 8 months, they can't possibly be full-blown techs.
Well, they are at a level high enough that they are working independently. And so since I'm a field technician and they are typically field technicians as well, I am training them at customer locations that I am eventually going to turn to them as they're part of their book of business. So when they break free, they are already know those customers. They have relationships with those customers. And when they break out, they just continue to call on those customers just like they were previously. So it's kind of a routine. They know what they're supposed to do. They know those customers, and they're comfortable. So, and then what I do is I follow up on them a couple days a week, make sure there's
That's
no
phen-
technical things that they're running into.
Sure. Okay.
that is phenomenal, man. That's phenomenal. From school, right out of school, to 6 to 8 months, you're working on cars by yourself, man. That's a great job, brother.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really, really big deal. You should be really, really happy with that. Hey, Michael Ramirez.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Marshall, I do have a quick one for you. Do you guys have like a vetting process, or is it just pretty much anyone that you could find is eligible for this apprenticeship? Because I feel like there are some people where they're not going to be at that accelerated rate. So, like, what do you do to try to weed through those?
Yeah. So that's a really good question. So, I think if you are looking to put together an apprenticeship program similar to what I do, is your mentor is going to have to be heavily involved front to back. So I also do all of the interviews with my management team. So because what I figured out is that if your mentor is not invested from the beginning, then you don't have the buy-in of the mentor. So when I say that's the kid that I want to train, and then they pull the trigger on him, do their best to hire him on and recruit him, it's more difficult for your mindset to be like, hey, I put my name on that person. It's kind of like you recommend somebody to hire, you really want that person to be successful because it's your name on it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one of the things we do. So like I said, front to back, I'm involved in the hiring process. And then also the way I select someone is that during the interview process, typically I ask a lot of questions um, that pertain to personality, because their personality has to match my personality. And then also my management team helps me with questions that I'm allowed to ask, questions I'm not allowed to ask. Because when you are coming up and you have been a technician on the floor and you don't know what stuff you're allowed to ask in an interview, right? So that's important. That's an important side of the professional mentorship that I receive from my management team, that puts me in a position later for management if I decide to go that route. So it's win-win, I think, for the dealership, because you're putting that person, your mentor, in situations that they're going to be later if they decide to go management. So hopefully that answers your question. Now, I do have some unorthodox ways that I choose people. I take my service truck to the Ford dealer all the time to get it serviced. And I'm not going to lie to you, I stand at my truck until the technician comes out to get it, and I will hand out my business cards to technicians that work at the Ford dealer. And most of the time they call me. I always tell them, hey, when you're ready to make some real money, give me a holler.
I'm really glad your unorthodox situations didn't involve a casting couch.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because that would be something that your management team would probably tell you isn't a good idea. Okay. I'm just telling you right there. That's probably not a good idea there. Hey, Ryan Baum, you're on mute, but go ahead, man.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So first question, because I have a very aggressive in-house, similar system that you guys kind of have going, but probably a little bit different. So first question I have though is what hours do you individually book a week by yourself?
How many hours do I turn? I probably turn 60 hours a week.
Okay. And then when you went to your program with your apprentice and so forth, what was the difference in hours that you're turning?
Right now I'm 105% efficient. And so
what's your proficiency?
My proficiency is like 95%.
Okay. And that's you though? So are you taking into consideration your technician that's on the job with you?
Yeah. So I also have the numbers for my apprentices. So my current apprentice is a 60-day apprentice. He's been with me for about 45 days. He was 118% efficient. He was 95% proficient, and he was #1 in sales for the month in the whole shop. He beat the shop technicians and all of the mobile technicians.
What do you mean by sales? By what he's selling? Do you guys individually sell to customers or per se?
Yeah, he's a mobile tech, so I mean he's selling directly to the customer. He doesn't have an
I got mobile
advisor
techs too, but that's the last thing I would do is have my technicians talking to him. You know what I mean?
But you're in a dealership situation as a mobile tech. They're going to do that, right? I mean, do you have mobile techs, Brian, at your Ford store?
Yeah, I did fucking almost 300 events last month.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. And I'm just asking because I don't have that yet.
No.
Do your mobile techs talk to the customer?
They communicate with the customer on their wants and needs, but anything upsell, no. Obviously, we have the advisor get in touch with them.
Really?
And to talk a little bit more about it, David Taylor, who's on there, he is my mobile tech coordinator manager. So he runs the whole thing for me now. And he's taken it pretty extreme with that stuff. But yeah, we have him reach out or the crew reach out with that situation. But I can't imagine, because technicians, they you get some good ones, but then you get the ones that just don't want to sell, right?
Well,
so
yeah, but I don't think Marshall's going to be mentoring somebody that doesn't want to sell.
Yeah, I wouldn't put a technician in the field that wasn't also part salesman. So like we do all of our own service writing. We don't have a service writer. Nobody dispatches us. We find our own work. It's part of our job description. So
yeah, but how much are you missing out on then?
I'm sure we could probably sell
You know
more,
what I mean? Because
but
if you're focused on that in the selling portion of it versus
right,
what a technician should be focused on is just turning hours
right.
and,
No,
renting.
I mean,
That's really what it's
yeah,
about.
no, I get that. But my expenses are probably considerably less because I have little to no back of the house expenses. So like my net percentage might be more because I'm not paying a bunch on the back of the house with foreman or any management or anything on the back end. You know what I mean? So it probably shakes out. To be honest.
Yeah, it could, but I think where you got to remember too is what is it shaking out to, right? Or what are you losing? What potential could you be
Yeah,
upselling or onto the next vehicle or onto the next job? Why they're worried about upsells or scheduling an appointment or tracking your day-to-day movement and following up and going after declined services and going after whether it's maybe
Well,
not your
I think going after
recalls.
declined services and such, I mean, we're getting a little bit off topic here, but going after declined services, I don't think is something that Marshall would probably necessarily do. You probably have an office for that or something.
yeah. I have a service manager and an outside salesman. That if there's something extracurricular that I need to sick somebody on, I will definitely do that. If I have a lead or anything like that, I will send an outside salesman out to sell some labor. I do have somebody that I can lean on to cold call and things like that. So like I'm not out cold calling or doing anything crazy like that. I have
So with your guy and you, when you're upselling, since you only do the one part of the job, I guess, and not the other, what is your closing ratio?
um, it's extremely high because like I don't lose a lot of work. So I don't have that in front of me because I wasn't prepared for that kind of a question.
That's all right, dude.
Gotcha.
I mean, on a later date, we can get down in the weeds on
No,
the
I just
numbers.
didn't. I'm just trying to figure out your field and where you're at, and obviously the difference in taking it in-house and combining everything and just really put your mind around it. I think that's the biggest difference.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's definitely a little bit different because like my guys they have to know a lot more probably than like you said. Your guys are more focused on just getting there, doing the work. My guys are building customer relationships and building them for long periods of time, and it's large fleets, and the point of contact is the technician. They're not calling our shop; they're calling the technician. Hey, I need you to come work on this.
No, I'm agreeing with you, but here, so just to clear maybe the turbulence I threw out there. So 100% agree with you that, it's about commitment and relationship and building and so forth, right? My question is when you're talking about that stuff and you're the point of contact, to me, that's all downtime, right? That's all time that shouldn't be on your hands and you guys be doing it and schedule and your whole day and whatever, right? It's like you should have that lined up. You walk in the shop, they have your day lined up for you, and it wouldn't put you in a position where you're, if you want to measure your efficiency and productivity and your proficiency and everything else, that these are real things that could probably lift some stuff off your plate if you had help in the inside.
Yeah. So if like I said, I do have people that I can lean on, but to Zach threw up a good point. So because he knows a little bit more in depth of like how I approach my business. So the customers that I target, I'm not doing a lot of one-off customers. So what I do is I take an apprentice, I train them at one or two locations, usually one, and that apprentice works at one location every day. So they may go to a city shop where they have 3 bays to work out of, and all they got to do is get in their service truck, drive there, and they work there 45 hours a week. So there's not a whole ton of like one-off calls. Typically, if there's one-off calls, I'm doing them. And the scheduling is not difficult.
Gotcha. And you guys do book hours too, right?
Yeah, we do. So if it's like customer pay, it's like times 30% or whatever.
Thanks.
All right, Ryan, thanks for the complete and total derailment. No, I'm joking. Hey, Ray Hernandez, let's talk about building technicians here, buddy.
Sorry, mute button's on a different screen. Yeah, Ryan, come on, you're derailing the guy here. And I love what he's saying. It's not the same as the auto industry. These guys are going out and you guys are eating what you kill out in the field. So the way I'm hearing you is what you're selling up front may be a little bit lower because you got somebody taking an order or somebody's giving you, or hey, go see BDC, Wendy facility and start with X. Now you're out there in the field and you're upselling them what you're finding. You're doing an inspection just like we do, correct?
Right. So like, especially fresh customers, new customers, if I got a lead, so once a quarter or sometimes more often than that, I'm given a conquest list for my management team. My management team gives me a conquest list of customers they want me to go out and take market share from my competitors. So I don't send apprentices out to do conquest work. That's me. I go there. I give them the ooh and the ah. I say, hey, could I give you 30 free inspections today? I'll go out, do a bunch of inspections. I'm going to find something on every single vehicle I look at, and I'm going to upsell the work.
And you're selling in field, so I would imagine to what you just said, your closing ratio is higher because you're there showing them.
Yeah, he's there. He's got it right in front of him. They need him. If it's broken down in the field, they got to do it.
Yeah, so
that's going to help his closing ratio for sure.
And so you go out on a lead. One thing I'm trying to wrap my head around is just like we have these problems today is customer comes in for an oil change or oil change tire rotation, basic service, and you upsell them a bunch of different things. Now we got to get that work out. How do you handle that in your field? I mean, you can't necessarily say, I'm going to see these 3 customers today. What if the first one turns into a whole bunch of work? What do you do with customer 2 and 3?
Right. So typically, if I had 3 customers lined out like that, I would go there, do the inspections, and then I would schedule that work. So I'd say, hey, I got to order the parts. I'll be back tomorrow. Then I can allot for the time required for the repairs, and make sure that that customer gets a fair shake. To get a fair amount of my time. So that way nobody's upset.
So day 1 and 2 might be doing inspections, and day 3 to 5 might be just doing that upsell work.
That's correct.
Okay, cool. And the last question, I was reading through your deal here while Ryan was babbling on about how it doesn't fit in the automotive deal. I'm seeing 1.5 years, and then you go into a different deal.
Yeah, so that's actually 2 separate things. So in there, if you look at kind of at the headlines, it's one of them is an internship. So that's for the part-time kids that are still going to college. And then when we also had the apprenticeship section. That was something that I made up a long time ago, so that I was able to have something to kind of give me my own guidelines. I didn't bring any company stuff with me, obviously, but
for sure.
That was something that I had for, like I said, just kind of give me guidelines on every once in a while. I just take a peek at it. I'm like, hey, is this guy on track? So, or gal on track. So I just wanted to put that in there so that you guys have something. If you have nothing, it's better to have something that you can modify and move to, make it your own.
And here, let's just real quick. One of the things I saw on this document that, again, it's shared in the chat here, is that there's a 90-day evaluation and sign off. The apprentice, the mentor, the foreman, the service manager, and there's the comments that areas that they still need to work on. And then there's going to be, then there's another sign off after what is it? God, you got a lot of information on this, dude. 120 day, so I mean, there's multiple stages here where there's an evaluation process of the technician, of the apprentice, that gives them that information that they can use to get better. And now, Marshall, do you consistently follow through with those check-in periods?
Yeah. So especially our new company one, it's held to a pretty high standard because our HR people hold us accountable. So there's a tool list that our technicians are supposed to have 30, 60, 90 days. There's also the skill sets. So, and the training guidelines. So my guys are, I have to go in there, put the exact date that they complete each class. I have to go in there and put the skills in there as well. So they hold us to a pretty high standard with this new setup that they have. But before, I was kind of doing it in my mind. And then, like I said, once a month or whatever, I'd go through and check off skills and remind myself, oh, I hadn't taught that yet. And then I'd go over it that week or whatever. And then I would give it to my service manager, put in a technicians personnel folder.
So let's talk about that tool list. Again, anybody that wants to speak, go ahead and raise your hand. Well, let's talk about that tool list that you're requiring the technicians to have. Are the techs purchasing those tools? Do you have a tool program for the technicians? Do you recommend a tool program for the techs? How do you get into that?
Yeah, so a lot of the schools do some pretty good stuff, the ones that I partner with. Right now, our company is not providing any tools. I think that's probably going to change here in the near future, probably this year, possibly. So I foresee some big changes company-wise at my company for the tool portion. But right now, yeah, it's out of pocket.
So do you recommend a tool, some sort of tool allowance or something like that for apprentices coming into the business? Because I mean, here, that's one of the biggest,
100%.
that's the single biggest expense for a tech. I mean, you spend $100,000 on tools and it takes you forever to get it back, or 50,000, whatever you spend, take you forever to
Yeah.
get it back. And in any other industry, most of that stuff's supplied for you.
Right. So that's definitely an ongoing battle, I think, industry wide, right? That's like one of the biggest barriers to entries that we have. Since my apprentices work closely with me for basically, 6 to 8 months, there's nothing super strenuous of cost wise that they've got to get into. Basic stuff is what I need my guys to have. All the air tools, electric tools, I have 2 or 3 of with me all the time in my service truck. One of the locations that I spend a lot of time at, because I have 4 technicians that work there, I keep a toolbox there. So when I go there, my apprentice has a toolbox to work out of. They can work out of my service truck. If they just got a little service cart and they've got some basic hand stuff, they can go over to my toolbox and get some power tools and keep them with them during the day and then put them back at the end of the day. So
in this tool list, is there so you have basically a recommended list of tools, right? I mean, these are the ones
right.
you should be using. This is what it's going to take to get the job. Again, something that's documented. I applaud the documentation on this because it helps everybody, kind of keep everybody in the same on the same path. Hey, Brent, go ahead.
Hey, thanks. Yeah, Marshall, I was just kind of wondering how apprenticeship actually works for you guys, because you're saying you're taking guys right out of college, right?
Sometimes, yeah.
Sometimes, yeah. So they do a full-time program at a local college for say 2 years or
Yeah, so most of those colleges have a 1 year
1 year?
certificate, a certificate only, where they get a certificate, and then some of them do a 2 year where they get a college degree. So
College degree. Okay.
yeah. But I'll be 100 with you. The apprentice that I have right now, I got him from a restaurant, and he had 0 experience working on big trucks. He had a little bit of stuff working on his own car. He has a little Honda Civic or whatever. I just thought he had good customer service skills when I was at the restaurant eating. So I gave him my business card and I put him to work. And then the kid that I trained before him, a similar deal. And the apprentice that I got before him, I got from the butcher shop that my wife and I buy our pork chops and steaks from. So I see talent everywhere. So if you see talent, I suggest you pick it up and then you grow it. You feed it, you grow it, you mentor it.
Yeah.
And you turn them into killers.
I think their system operates just a little bit differently than here in Canada, because I'm an instructor at one of the colleges here, right? So essentially the the technician coming into the trade has to find an employer to indenture them, right?
Yeah.
And then they do 10 months of on the job, right?
Yeah.
Work. And hopefully they have a good mentor, right? And then they come to the college and they do 8 weeks, right? And while they're at college for 8 weeks, they still get paid, right? They can apply for unemployment insurance and still get paid, so they're not losing a wage. So there's a little bit of incentive there, right? But they're yeah. So
Yeah, the Canadian, you have considerably more barriers to entry because you guys can't go cross-platform either. There's a lot of stuff there on the Canadian side that needs to be nailed down. If you've checked out our Wrench Turner's podcast that we do, the 10 mil mastery, half the guys are from Canada. So fortunately, they've helped me out a lot understanding the process. I actually filled out a bunch of paperwork because I told them I was going to get a Canadian ticket, and so I'm working on that right now. There's a province that will allow me to use my experience to get my ticket. So I'm sending all my paperwork in. So it's going to be
what province is that?
It's right above Alaska, where they do
It's one of the northern ones.
Yukon.
The Yukon. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, nice. Yeah, because I'm in Alberta. But yeah, okay. No, that's good to know.
Yeah, and then I figured out that I could go sit for my my red seal in Ontario after I get my ticket in the Yukon.
Yeah.
And I wanted to go up and see some of the 10 mil guys. So I told them, well, when I go up there, I'm going to sit and get my red seal. So nice. I've already done all the figuring, but yeah, it's I'm just doing it to do it because I think
why
it's
not,
fun.
right? Yeah, they break our industry, the heavy duty industry, into two trades, right? So there's the on-road and then off-road, right?
Off-road, yeah.
And then you can take the complete trade in 4 years, or you can go each path or separate paths is 3 years each, right? So yeah.
Your guys is crazy.
Yeah.
And it's province to province, and there's a lot of moving parts with your guys' situation. So I applaud the grind because I know that the barriers to entry are extreme over there.
Yeah, there's and then there's you deal with the whole shortage of technicians right now, and the barriers are still there. I just spent I had 4 months trying to find a placement for my neighbor's cousin who was wanted to be a RAP student. So that's our registered apprenticeship program. And there was literally, with all my contacts around Edmonton,
Exactly right.
trying to find anyone to take a high school kid and get him into an apprenticeship was taxing. It was frustrating. Right?
Yeah.
And like, he's farm kid, he works on stuff, like he's got a little bit of experience. His dad's a heavy duty technician, and where his dad works, they couldn't even put him up to give him some experience either, right? So
a lot of hoops. Seems like there's a lot of hoops up north.
Yeah.
Hey, Gary Ralston, somebody that's not in Canada.
Hey, Marshall, I think you're phenomenal. It's like a little bromance going on there. But
I heard that.
Your drive and everything you have is exceptional. And and going back a little bit here, the way I look at you, Marshall, is you're kind of like the independent repair facility that all the dealerships go against. And the reason people go to the independents and believe in them and do the recommended work and the closing ratio is so high because they have that relationship. So I think that is the biggest thing you have going for you besides your own phenomenal personality. The one thing you touched upon, because I'm a firm believer that you hire the person, not the piece of paper. And too many of us in a lot of industries, we look at a resume, we look at this, we look at that. And my number one thing that I look at is the individual. And you touched upon it, Marshall. I like hiring people out of the restaurant business. I have 3 techs that came from the restaurant business because if they give you good service, they work the goofy hours, it's a no-brainer coming to the automotive industry. We have to stay open. There's definitely a technician shortage out there, but we have to knock down all these barriers that we build up ourselves on. How do I get these people? I'm a lot smaller than a lot of these shops, but when we moved in my franchise, our new building 12 years ago, we came out there with 8 technicians. We're up to 21 now, and I've never, ever had a shortage as far as technicians. And, you know, we're probably going to add another 2 or 3 within the next couple of years. And now I'm starting to have to get creative on physical space and schedules because of that. But you are doing it the right way, Marshall. And that's all I wanted to say.
Yeah, I appreciate that. You know, hiring the person is big. I'm 100 all in on that. You know, my 60-day apprentice that I have right now didn't graduate high school, never thought he would be anything. And you can see once they start doing it and they're doing their thing, they're extremely appreciative, and that creates a ton of loyalty. So, you know, I think out of my last 3 apprentices, only 2 of them passed high school. Or yeah, 2 of them passed high school. This one didn't. The other one only he got a GED. So I'm looking at the person, not the paper, for sure.
So that's one of the things you can talk about with with the business, right? And no matter what aspect of it you're in, this is one of the very few businesses that truly drive, ability to learn, and work ethic will get you further than a piece of paper. You don't need that in this business. And it might help you. I'm not saying it doesn't, but damn, if you got it and you want it, you can get it. And that's what's special about this car business. Whether you're a technician or a manager or BDC, whatever, if you want it, you can get it. And Marshall, you're encouraging that with these young men, and making sure that they're jumping up and seeing that brass ring, and it's attainable to them, especially with the check-ins and what you're teaching them and the tool lists and everything like that. These are the expectations you're going to have. I'm going to hold you to these expectations. And when you're done with these expectations, you're going to be making X amount of dollars per year, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's fantastic. Ray Hernandez.
Hey, I want to hear Russell's. I think he said in the chat something along the lines of he'd like to talk to the customer or something. If I missed that and was, hey, you're going to buy from me? Come on, Russ. I want to hear what you say.
Yeah, jump in here, Russell.
Ray.
I do love talking to the customer because I can explain to them what they need to hear. I have a much better success rate at selling the services because I can explain to them why their car needs what it needs. I can show them why it needs what it needs. I can send them pictures and whatever. I try to communicate this to the advisor and he gets lost in translation. So that's why I like to talk to the customer. I don't have a filthy mouth, so you know I'm not dropping the F-bomb, so it makes it real easy.
What the fuck are you talking about?
What?
Remember, it's only half a word in Illinois, but
Yeah. No, and here we'll tackle that, talking to the customer and the text talking to the customer. I think there's no problem. I think training your apprentices to talk to the customer, I think that's brilliant, right? Because at some point in time you're going to have to talk to customers. And I understand both sides of that argument. You're going to have to talk about you know, if you're not slinging a wrench, you're not making any money, blah, 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 blah. I totally understand that. And in some scenarios, that's accurate. In some scenarios, it's completely not accurate because you can make some money.
I mean, if I'm trying to sling a wrench, but the advisor's not selling the work, what good does it do anyway?
For sure. Yeah. And that's what I'm saying. In some situations it works, in some it doesn't. And by the way, if you're trying to sling a wrench and your advisor's not selling any work, I've said it to you once, I'll say it to you 1,000 times, Russell. That's a function of management and they let you down. Michael Ramirez, go ahead.
Well, I think a lot of the times, like we need to be teaching them how to do that sales side as far as like the professional appearance goes for a technician, because when they don't want to, that's the easy way out, right? But that's kind of short-sighted because going back to what Russell said, if you can't keep up your career at a fast pace, you need to look at what's next for you. And sometimes that's what it is. It's being the service advisor and being able to communicate that and close that deal.
So what do you Marshall, when you're wrapping up with your mentorship program, and you're ready to turn them on, I know you said you talk to them and you check in with them and that sort of stuff. So they're on for the next 6 months. Now, how many How many apprentices have you set up throughout the years?
Um, it's got to be 50, close to 50.
Okay, so you're close to 50. So that's 50 people. Now, do you have 50? Have all these apprentices stayed at your company? What's that? We were talking about closing rates. What's the
Right.
closing rate there?
So, and recently I, about 2 years ago, I lost one, but he came back. So he's back with me again. But the loyalty is pretty strong. So the closing rate is high. And honestly, there's been a couple of times where I was thinking about leaving, but I could never walk away from an apprentice. So if I'm in the middle of apprenticeship, I ain't going to walk away from it. I got to finish it out. And by then I figured out that I wasn't really that angry anyway. So, I feel like,
Cooler
I
heads
feel like
prevail,
it's,
right?
yeah, I feel like it's win-win for the company, really, because there's definitely been times where I was sour about something. I was able to work through it in the time that I was still working on that apprentice, and so it worked out for the company both ways. And since I worked at multiple OEMs, some of those are still working where I left them, and they still call me. I think the mentorship, the apprenticeship is temporary. The mentorship is forever. So they'll call me 6-7 years later and ask me questions like, hey, you never taught me how to ask for a raise. Like, how do I talk to my service manager about getting a raise? Like, I feel like I'm due a raise. So that's one thing that I really teach, that like negotiating pay raises is part of my apprenticeship now, or part of my mentorship now. Because I don't want them to call me 7 years later. And I mean, I want them to call me, but I want them to have the skills to negotiate their salaries, because if they decide to get out of being a mechanic and they're an advisor or a service manager, that's a skill set they need to have, is negotiating their salary. So
you
that's
took it.
something I've had.
I mean, that's what makes you able to mentor 50, plus people, is that you've taken it to a different place. You're not just showing them how to replace a part on a vehicle.
Right.
You're giving them career advice, genuine career advice that will help them in the future. And be honest, we can put anything we want on paper, and I'm all about documentation, but if we don't, but you teaching that changes the game, and that's what retains employees.
Yeah, see, and that's the apprenticeship is the on paper, right? That's the on paper hold accountables. The mentorship, that's the real deal stuff. That's the loyalty, like you said, because like I get on the tool trucks with my apprentices. I teach them good habits on purchasing tools, things like that. Everything that I learn professionally, I pour into my apprentices. So the more that I learn from you guys on here. Any outlet that I can use to make myself a better mentor is what I do. So me being with you guys and around the SDL team makes me better. So I put a lot of time into bettering myself so that I can better my apprentices. That's the deal.
That's awesome.
That's
I
what
love
drives
it.
me along.
I bet the
So
tool guys love it when you walk on the truck with the apprentice.
they hate it. They actually hate it, because I'm like, hey, don't buy that here. We can get that exact same one on
that's
Amazon.
awesome. I think that's great. I really do. And I didn't even think about those aspects of it. Those non-tangible assets that you can give your mentees on this. It's priceless.
Right.
It really is. Now,
Just
I
like,
think, oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
well, and I think a lot of the SDL team that's been here a long while know that last year I bought a house.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's something I talk to my apprentices about. A lot of these people are 22, 23, 24 years old, and they're young. And I'm like, hey, you guys are going to want to buy a house. This is how I did it. There's a lot of ways you can get there, but this is how I did it. This is how I got to that. You guys need to be thinking about this is how you do it, So I want my people to be successful. I think in the long run, I don't want to train just technicians. I want to train people that want to be foremen, service managers, assistant service managers. I want them to be hungry, stay hungry, and I want to give them as many skills as I can. That's why I teach P&L. That's why I teach financial stuff. I spend a lot of time teaching myself with my management team on how to do the financials, read the financials, so that I can pour that same stuff into my apprentices, because why not, right?
Agreed.
That's the deal.
And I know a lot of you guys want to, we will be having a show probably in 2 weeks about the role of the technician in the selling process. All right. Just, it's going to be okay, everybody. We're going to get to that one. I promise you. I know Ryan's chomping at the bit. Ray Hernandez wants to hijack
No,
everything.
I wanted to just say, because I think everyone was thinking that I'm taking my technician off the job and then trying to upsell, and I think there was some confusion there. So, what I
I believe they called you antisocial, Ryan.
That's all right, but I'm not worried about that. The good news is no. What we do is why the technician's there. The first thing that's done is obviously the MPI, right? And then while he's still there, if there's questions, then obviously, yes, they can go outside, they can talk to the technician and so forth, right? But I could tell you right now, when a technician gets himself into a position to overcome objectives and use the right word tracks and so forth, it gets a little tricky on them, right? And it's challenging. So I'm not knocking that position, but what I'm saying is, if I ever had an advisor or a parts department not getting the time to the MPI, to the technician on the field, or to the advisor to be able to upsell that right away, that all falls on management, right? That's all.
Yeah, it's a function of management, no doubt.
Correct. So if you're not watching your times, I mean, this is all irrelevant then. It just, you know what I mean?
Right. No, I get it. Hey, all right, everybody. We are going to be wrapping this up. Marshall, any closing thoughts?
I think closing thoughts would be, don't forget to pour into your people that you think are going to be the mentors in your shop. I think you should professionally mentor them as much as you can, because they are going to turn around and put that into the apprentices that they put out. Everything you put into your mentors, they're going to put that into their apprentices. If you don't feed your mentors, they're not going to feed your apprentices, and that's not what you want. So you want some studs out there. You've got to create your mentors in the studs. So pour as much as you can into your mentors, so they don't have to go looking. Feed them.
Good. Excellent. I like that. That's a great way to end it. Everybody, thank you so much, and we'll see you all next week. All right.
Well done, Marshall.
Thank you.